Look at that flying tank. I'm surprised it can even get off the ground. Hey, Grandma, try not to lose any parts up there." The mocking laughter rang out over the radio communications, echoing with youthful arrogance. But oh, when they saw the tail number clearly, they didn't just see digits, they saw a name, a chilling warning that hit them like a bolt from the blue. Who was she, really? And why on earth did an old aircraft carry such a terrifying legacy that could silence even the cockiest of pilots? From which city are you watching this today, feeling that rush of awe? Captain Haley Monroe, 42. A true veteran pilot who had been an absolute icon in the skies with her A-10 Warthog for over 15 years of distinguished, heart-pounding service. After temporarily leaving active duty due to those nagging health reasons, Haley had recently returned through a grueling retraining program, assigned to fly an aging Warthog, while those younger pilots showed off with their sleek, modern F-16 formations. Can you feel the sting of that contrast? Before climbing into the cockpit, she gently placed her hand on the metal fuselage right over a large scar that had been patched and repaired, a testament to battles survived. "Here we are together again," she murmured. "Old friend," she whispered quietly, her voice filled with deep, unbreakable affection. For her, this wasn't a demotion at all, no way. This was a reunion, an emotional homecoming that warmed her soul. The young soldiers called her the old-timer, dismissing both her and the aircraft that was older than most of them had been alive, as if experience meant nothing in the face of shiny new tech. In today's joint training exercise, condescending looks and mocking jokes filled the briefing room as the pilots discussed their assignments and aircraft capabilities. How could they be so blind? But Haley didn't need to say anything. Oh, she knew the sky would provide its own answers, revealing truths they couldn't ignore. The military airfield buzzed with the controlled energy that characterized joint training operations between different aircraft squadrons, a hive of anticipation and ego. Sleek F-16, Fighting Falcons sat in perfect formation, their polished surfaces gleaming under the morning sun like technological works of art, pure perfection. In contrast, Haley's A-10 Thunderbolt II appeared weathered and battle-worn, its gray paint faded and showing signs of extensive repairs and modifications that spoke of years of operational service in challenging, life-or-death environments to the young F-16 pilots conducting their pre-flight inspections. The visual comparison between their modern multi-role fighters and the aging close air support aircraft seemed to tell an obvious story about military evolution and capability, or so they thought. "Can't believe they still have those things in service," one pilot commented to his wingman as they walked past Haley's aircraft, his tone dripping with disbelief. "Looks like it belongs in a museum rather than on an active flight line, seriously." "Yeah," his colleague replied with obvious amusement, chuckling at the absurdity. "Probably flies about as fast as my car drives on the highway. What a relic." The dismissive commentary continued as more pilots gathered around their sophisticated aircraft, discussing advanced avionics, precision-guided munitions, and air-to-air combat capabilities that seemed to represent everything modern about military aviation, as if the past had no place in the present. Haley could hear their conversations as she completed her methodical pre-flight inspection, checking systems and components with the careful attention to detail that came from understanding exactly how each part of her aircraft had performed under intense combat conditions. Her heart knew every scar's story. The irony of their comments wasn't lost on her. Oh, the sheer irony. She was being dismissed by pilots who had never faced the kind of situations where the A-10's unique capabilities had made the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. How could they possibly understand? But rather than correct their misconceptions about the aircraft's role and capabilities, she preferred to let her flying demonstrate what experience and the right tool for the job could accomplish. Actions speak louder, right? The A-10 had been designed for a specific mission profile that required capabilities these young pilots had never needed to develop. skills forged in the fire of real danger. Low-altitude precision strikes, extended loitering time over target areas, and the ability to absorb damage that would destroy most other aircraft. Imagine enduring that kind of punishment and still soaring. Today's training exercise would provide opportunities to demonstrate those capabilities, but only if the situation called for the kind of flying that the Warthog had been built to excel at, proving its timeless worth. As Haley completed her inspection and prepared to climb into the cockpit, she noticed the tail number prominently displayed on her aircraft, FT-1087, a simple mark with profound power. To most observers, it was just another military identification number, nothing special. But to those who knew military aviation history, those digits represented something far more significant than standard aircraft identification, a legend etched in the annals of heroism. The pre-flight briefing continued with increasing displays of confidence from the F-16 squadron as they discussed their training objectives and demonstrated their superior understanding of modern air combat tactics. Were they setting themselves up for a fall? Lieutenant Viper II Johnson, a particularly cocky young pilot, had positioned himself as the informal leader of the dismissive commentary about older aircraft and their perceived limitations, strutting like he owned the skies. "Looking forward to seeing what that antique can do up there," he announced loudly enough for Haley to hear as she completed her equipment check, his words laced with sarcasm. "Hope it doesn't fall apart when we start maneuvering." His wingman, Viper I Mitchell, attempted to maintain some professionalism. "Keep it focused on the mission." "Viper II, this is training, not a comedy show." But Johnson was clearly enjoying his audience and the opportunity to demonstrate his superior knowledge of aviation technology. Oh, the hubris. I mean, seriously, that thing probably has the turning radius of a cargo plane and the speed of a helicopter. I could probably do barrel rolls around it while flying backwards, ha. Other F-16 pilots chuckled at his confidence, viewing his bravado as typical fighter pilot swagger, rather than recognizing the disrespect he was showing to a fellow aviator. Didn't they see the line they were crossing? Haley, monitoring the radio chatter from her cockpit, simply smiled quietly, a knowing glint in her eye. Kids are always in such a hurry, she thought to herself. Remembering her own youth and the lessons that experience had taught her about the difference between confidence and competence, the lessons that sting when learned the hard way. The formation took off in sequence with the F-16 second launching first in an impressive display of coordinated precision that showcased their advanced capabilities and the skill of their pilots, truly a sight to behold. Haley's A-10 followed, rumbling down the runway with the distinctive sound of its twin engines and the deliberate, purposeful acceleration that characterized the aircraft's design philosophy, a roar that echoed resilience. "Don't fall apart up there, old-timer," Johnson's voice crackled over the radio as the aircraft formed up for the training exercise, still poking fun. "Roger that," Haley replied calmly, her response carrying no indication of irritation or defensiveness, despite the continued mockery such grace under fire. As the formations settled into their assigned positions for the training scenario, Johnson began preparing to demonstrate what he considered superior flying technique, eager to show off. "Watch this, guys," he announced over the internal communications channel. "I'm going to show Grandma what real flying looks like with a few demonstration maneuvers. Get ready." "Maintain formation discipline, Viper II," Mitchell ordered, becoming increasingly frustrated with his wingman's unprofessional behavior. "This is a training exercise, not your personal air show. What are you thinking?" But Johnson was determined to prove his point about the superiority of modern aircraft and young pilots over what he viewed as obsolete equipment and aging personnel. No backing down. "Just a quick demonstration of what 21st century aviation can do," he replied, preparing to break formation for an unauthorized display of aerobatic capability, his ego leading the way. As Johnson began his maneuver, positioning his F-16 for what he intended to be an impressive demonstration of superior speed and agility. He adjusted his flight path to get a better view of Haley's aircraft. Little did he know, it was this adjustment that brought the tail number on Haley's A-10 into clear focus on his heads-up display, changing everything in an instant. Johnson was about to begin his show-off maneuver when the digits FT-1087 registered in his consciousness, and his confident expression began to change as recognition dawned. Oh, the dawning horror! He wasn't just seeing a random aircraft identification number. He was seeing a designation that had been mentioned in Academy history classes about legendary aircraft and the missions that had made them famous. Could this be real? FT-1087, the Widowmaker, the aircraft that had single-handedly devastated an entire enemy armored column during Desert Storm, when its pilot had refused orders to withdraw, and instead completed one of the most devastating close air support missions in military history. What a feat of bravery! Johnson's face went pale as memories of Academy lectures about legendary military aircraft and their combat records flooded back to him, overwhelming him with regret. His voice, suddenly lacking all traces of cockiness, came over the radio with obvious shock. "Lead! That's the Widowmaker." Mitchell, who had been focused on maintaining formation discipline, responded with irritation. "What are you talking about, Widowmaker?" "It's the Widowmaker," Johnson repeated, his voice carrying panic and awe in equal measure, pure disbelief. The radio channel fell completely silent as the implications of that identification spread through the F-16 formation like a shockwave. Can you hear the pin drop? Every pilot in the squadron had heard stories about FT-1087, the A-10 that had become legendary, not just for its combat record, but for the pilot who had flown it through missions that had redefined what was possible in close air support operations. Icons don't fade. The aircraft they had been mocking wasn't just an old airplane. It was a piece of military history, a museum artifact that was still operational, carrying battle scars that represented some of the most dangerous and successful missions in modern air combat, each mark a badge of honor. And the pilot they had been calling Grandma was apparently the person who had earned that aircraft its terrifying reputation. Talk about a plot twist. They mocked the faded paint and old design, but they didn't know that each scratch was a campaign. Each repaired bullet hole was a story, heart-wrenching tales of survival. They weren't facing an aircraft. They were facing a flying war museum. What makes a legend? New paint and modern technology, or scars in a number sequence that has entered history? Comment legend. If you believe some machines and people never truly become obsolete, doesn't that resonate deep down? The radio frequency fell into complete silence as the F-16 formation processed the implications of what they had just discovered about the aircraft and pilot they had been dismissing as relics of outdated military aviation. The weight of their mistake crushing. Lieutenant Johnson, whose cockiness had evaporated entirely, found himself staring at his heads-up display, as if the tail number might change if he looked at it differently. Wishful thinking. The other F-16 pilots began accessing their onboard databases and communication systems to verify what they were all beginning to suspect, but hardly dared to believe could the legends be true. Control. This is Viper 1 Mitchell radio to the Air Traffic Control Tower. Request immediate verification of aircraft identification FT-10 and 87. We need confirmation of pilot assignment and operational history. The request was processed through multiple levels of military database access. And when the response came back, it confirmed what the Academy legends had suggested, but never fully documented. Boom. Reality hits. Viper 1, be advised that FT-1087 is confirmed as Widowmaker operational aircraft with Captain Haley Monroe. Call sign Ghost attached to classified close air support operations, spanning multiple theaters of operation. The formal confirmation hit the F-16 squadron like a thunderbolt, as they realized they weren't just flying alongside a veteran pilot, but with someone whose combat record included missions that had become the stuff of military legend mind-blowing. "Ghost," Johnson whispered over the radio, his voice carrying a mixture of awe and embarrassment, as he remembered stories about a pilot whose precision strikes had earned her a reputation that enemy forces had come to fear more than entire squadrons of conventional aircraft. True fear. Mitchell, suddenly understanding the magnitude of their error in judgment, took control of the situation with the respect that the circumstances demanded. "Ma'am," he said over the radio, addressing Haley directly for the first time with the deference that her service record warranted. We weren't aware of your operational background. It's an honor to fly with you today, truly, ma'am." Haley's response carried the understated professionalism that characterized people whose greatest achievements could never be fully acknowledged in public forums. A quiet strength that spoke volumes. "Just another training flight, Viper 1. Let's focus on the mission objectives," she said, her voice steady yet warm. But the dynamic of the training exercise had been fundamentally altered by the recognition of who they were flying with and what the fated A-10 represented in terms of military history and combat effectiveness. Can you imagine the shift in their hearts? As the formation continued through the planned training scenarios, Haley began to demonstrate why the A-10 had earned its fearsome reputation, and why her piloting skills had become legendary among those who knew the full story, pure inspiration in motion. During a simulated close air support scenario, while the F-16 second maneuvered at high altitude with their advanced targeting systems, Haley brought her A-10 down to dangerous low-altitude approaches that showcased the aircraft's unique capabilities, pushing the limits with breathtaking courage. She executed a series of snake and nape maneuvers, low-altitude turns and climbs that confused the targeting systems of simulated enemy aircraft while maintaining perfect precision on ground targets below. How exhilarating must that have felt? The F-16 pilots watched in amazement as the supposedly obsolete aircraft performed maneuvers that their advanced jets couldn't replicate. Using the A-10's exceptional low-speed handling and maneuverability to achieve tactical advantages that speed and technology alone couldn't provide. "Talk about a game changer. How is she doing that?" Johnson asked over the radio, his voice filled with genuine admiration rather than the mockery that had characterized his earlier comments. "Finally, a touch of humility." "Experience," Mitchell replied, his own respect for what he was witnessing evident in his tone, "and an aircraft designed for a mission that we've never had to fly." Wow, what a lesson. The training exercise continued with Haley demonstrating precision that came from years of operational flying, under conditions where missing the target meant friendly casualties and where aircraft survivability depended on pilot skill. Rather than technological superiority, heart-stopping stakes every time. Her approaches were so low that she seemed to be flying through terrain rather than over it, using natural cover and the A-10's ability to absorb damage to simulate the kind of close air support that had made her legendary during her active combat tours. When the exercise concluded and the formation returned to base, the atmosphere among the F-16 pilots had changed completely from their earlier dismissive attitude, such a profound transformation. As they taxied back to the flight line, Johnson was the first to break radio silence, with what amounted to a public apology. "Ma'am," he said, his voice carrying genuine humility that tugged at the heartstrings, I was way out of line earlier. Could you maybe show me how you did those low-altitude maneuvers?" Haley's response was gracious, but carried the authority of someone whose expertise had been earned through experiences that these young pilots were only beginning to understand. "Earned through fire and grit?" "Sure thing, Viper 2. But first, stop calling me ma'am. And second, my coffee black, no sugar, 2 creams." The gentle humor in her response served to emphasize the complete reversal in their relationship dynamics, while maintaining the professionalism that characterized military aviation culture, lightening the mood with perfect timing. As the aircraft shut down and pilots began their post-flight procedures, Word about the identity of the A-10 pilot spread throughout the airbase with the speed that accompanied any story involving legendary military personnel gossip fueled by awe. Maintenance crews who had been servicing what they thought was just another aging aircraft began to understand that they had been working on a piece of military history that had participated in some of the most dangerous and successful close air support missions ever flown. Can you picture their wide-eyed realization? The base commander, alerted to the presence of a pilot whose service record included classified operations that most personnel would never be cleared to know about, made arrangements to meet with Haley personally. Meanwhile, flight instructors began discussing how to incorporate the lessons demonstrated during the training exercise into their curricula. Recognizing that they had witnessed techniques that weren't taught in standard pilot training programs, the young F-16 pilots found themselves in the unusual position of having been schooled by someone they had dismissed as irrelevant. Humbling, isn't it? And the experience served as a humbling reminder about the difference between technological superiority and operational expertise, a reminder that hits deep. As Haley completed her post-flight checklist and prepared to leave her aircraft, she paused to place her hand once again on the fuselage of FT-1087, the same gesture of respect and affection that had characterized her relationship with the legendary aircraft throughout their years of service, together a tender moment full of unspoken memories. The A-10 might have been old, scarred, and technologically outdated compared to modern fighters, but it had proven once again that some combinations of pilot and aircraft transcended the limitations that others assumed were insurmountable, timeless magic in the skies. Johnson, watching from a distance as Haley secured her aircraft, finally understood what he had been witnessing and what he had almost missed through his arrogance and assumptions about military aviation progress. Regret mingled with newfound wisdom. News of the Widowmaker revelation spread through the airbase and across military aviation networks like wildfire through interconnected communication channels, spreading excitement and respect far and wide. Within hours, every pilot and ground crew member on the installation had heard some version of the story about the legendary A-10 and its equally legendary pilot who had been dismissed as outdated by young F-16 pilots who didn't understand aviation history lessons echoing everywhere. Lieutenant Johnson found himself assigned to a very educational special training program. The base commander had personally arranged for him to receive intensive instruction in military aviation history and the tactical applications of different aircraft types. This assignment will help you understand the difference between technological advancement and operational effectiveness, the commander had explained when delivering the training directive. Perhaps studying real combat aviation will teach you to recognize expertise regardless of the platform it operates from. Shortly, the irony was perfect. Oh, how fitting. The pilot who had mocked close air support aircraft was now spending his days learning about the missions and tactics that had made the A-10 legendary in military aviation circles, poetic justice at its finest. Other F-16 pilots who had participated in the dismissive commentary found themselves volunteering for additional duties that involved studying close air support operations and the specialized flying techniques required for low-altitude precision missions, eager to grow from the experience. The base commander took immediate action to prevent similar incidents throughout the facility, swift and decisive. New protocols were established, emphasizing that military expertise came in many forms, and that some of the most significant aviation achievements had been accomplished by aircraft and pilots who operated outside the glamorous world of air-to-air combat, broadening perspectives. More importantly, a fundamental shift began in how base personnel approached interactions with pilots whose experience might not be immediately apparent through their current assignments or aircraft types, a shift toward true respect. Word spread rapidly through military aviation networks about the incident at the airbase. Other training facilities began implementing similar respect protocols, understanding that legendary capabilities often operated through assignments that didn't reflect their full operational background. Ripples of change. 6 weeks after the training exercise, the base commander received a secure communication from Air Combat Command, urgent and intriguing. The message was brief. Request immediate coordination with Monroe regarding development of advanced close air support training protocols. Classification level restricted ghost operational expertise essential for next-generation pilot development. The commander realized that Haley's presence at the base had been far more than a routine retraining. Assignment layers of purpose unveiled. She was maintaining operational readiness while serving in a reduced capacity, available for specialized training missions that required her unique combination of combat experience and tactical expertise, always ready to serve. He approached her during one of her regular maintenance inspections of FT-1087. Captain Monroe, I have a priority communication from Air Combat Command. They're requesting your involvement in developing new close air support curricula for advanced pilot training. Haley looked up from checking her aircraft systems, her expression showing no surprise at the expanded responsibilities, calm as ever. Tell them the training protocols are ready for implementation. Some techniques can't be learned from simulators. Commander, they require demonstration from people who've applied them when lives depended on precision real-world grit. Captain, if you don't mind me asking, how many other bases are you visiting for these training assignments? Haley smiled while continuing her inspection of the aircraft that had carried her through so many legendary missions, a smile full of quiet determination. Commander, pilots like me don't retire from teaching the next generation. We just expand our classroom to include anywhere that appreciates the lessons that experience can provide endless horizons. After she left for her new assignment, the commander reflected on how profoundly his understanding of military aviation and pilot development had evolved eye-opening growth. He realized that the most valuable training assets weren't always the newest aircraft or most advanced simulators, but often the experienced pilots who could demonstrate techniques that couldn't be learned any other way, priceless wisdom. The lesson had been learned, and it continued to influence pilot training procedures across multiple air combat commands, lasting impact. 3 months later, a small memorial appeared near the A-10 maintenance hangar. A discreet plaque read simply, "To those who prove that legends never land for the last time, true legends don't need modern technology or flashy appearances to prove their worth. Sometimes they live quietly in the rumble of twin engines and the whisper of battle-tested wings, carried by people who understand that the most important flights are the ones that save lives rather than win competitions or earn recognition." Profound truth. Captain Haley Monroe never sought fame for her years flying missions that redefined what was possible in close air support operations, selfless to the core. Neither did the hundreds of other A-10 pilots who served as invisible guardians for ground forces, flying aircraft that prioritized mission effectiveness over technological glamour, unsung heroes. They understood that some victories are measured not in speed records or technological specifications, but in friendly forces who returned home safely because someone was willing to fly low, slow, and dangerous when conventional aircraft couldn't provide the precision required. Lives saved. What a legacy! Some pilots are defined not by the advanced jets they flew, but by the impossible missions they completed with whatever aircraft could get the job done. True grit. The bond between Haley and FT-1087 had always been more than pilot and machine. It was proof of service in roles so demanding that only the perfect combination of human skill and aircraft capability could achieve success. Unbreakable partnership. It was verification that she had earned her place among aviators, whose greatest achievements would forever remain classified, but whose impact on military operations was immeasurable. Eternal respect. That day at the airbase, facing dismissal and condescension from people who measured aviation excellence by technological advancement and visual appeal, Haley had demonstrated something profound about the nature of legendary service strength in silence. She hadn't demanded respect or recognition. She hadn't tried to prove her worth with explanations or displays of credentials. She had simply let her flying speak for itself, demonstrating techniques that created a silence more powerful than any argument until the right people recognized what that expertise represented: powerful eloquence. The ripple effects of that training flight continued long after the engines had cooled. Waves of inspiration. The base commander's new protocols were adopted by military aviation facilities across 44 countries. The cultural shift he'd initiated spread through pilot training networks worldwide, creating new understanding about how to recognize and honor capabilities that operated outside contemporary technological frameworks. Global transformation. Training programs now included education about aviation history and the tactical lessons learned from pilots whose experience transcended the limitations of their aircraft, enriching futures. Military aviators learned that the most dangerous assumption was believing they could judge someone's capabilities by the age or appearance of their equipment. Wise caution. 2 years after the demonstration, Haley received a package delivered through secure military channels, a touching surprise. Inside was a simple black challenge coin bearing the A-10 Thunderbolt silhouette and the words, "Widowmaker Legacy," along with a handwritten note. For those who understand that some aircraft are more than machines, and some pilots write their legends in vapor trails rather than headlines, your silent service continues to inspire the next generation. Heartfelt words. The note was signed with squadron codes from A-10 units spanning 3 decades, representing pilots who understood that close air support was both art and science, requiring courage that couldn't be programmed into computers' shared brotherhood. She placed the coin beside her flight helmet, understanding that some recognition honors not just individual achievement, but the invisible networks of specialized aviation that make impossible missions routine. Deep connections. Technology changes. Young pilots grow up, but some things in the sky never become obsolete. Skill, honor, and history written in contrails enduring essence. New jets shine, but old legends never fade. Timeless. Subscribe if you believe real warriors never retire, and some tail numbers carry more history than medals. What a rallying cry.